Hi guys, welcome back to my YouTube channel. This is a full face natural glam start to finish makeup for combination normal to oily skin. It is extremely detailed. Leave all your comments in the comment section. I can't wait to answer and engage with you. Like, subscribe, and please share this video with your friends and your besties. See you in my next video. Bye. So we're going to start off with the micellar water and any baby wipes you find, and just gently clean your face. Today's look is going to be very clean, simple, and easy. She's so pretty already, duh. Talking about building hydration, I start with a serum, which is hyaluronic serum. So I always like to use brush, a flat top brush. You could use your fingers if you're applying on yourself, but if you're applying on clients or people, it's just more hygienic to use a brush for application, except it's time for you to massage your face. And I always like to wash and clean my hands before I start any session anyway, so I always do that. So building hydration is in the order of how dense the hydration products are, and also depending on your skin type. So Katrina has pretty normal oily in her T-zone areas, and then she's pretty normal in every other area. So for her, I'm just going to build a really hydrating base, because I know how to control the areas that have oil, which is her T-zone area, which is this, her chin, and pretty much all these areas. And then I like to use a moisturizing. I just like to build hydration, because honestly, a skin like finish is a well hydrated skin, and that's what I'm always aiming for. So I do the same thing just with another serum all over her face. Yes, I spend 15 minutes pretty much prepping your face, because once this part is done, the other parts are pretty easy to get by. Now I'm going in with my moisturizer, which is from Charlotte Tilbury. It's a water cream. I wouldn't say it's a completely only hydrating moisturizer or a moisturizer that has only H2O. When we deal with a skin or we prep for a more mattifying skin finish, I'll use a different kind of moisturizer that works really, really well on oily, extremely oily skin. So this moisturizer says water cream, but in my opinion, it's just more of a, it's not as rich as her regular, her original moisturizer, which is more cream based. So this content has a little more fluid and cream in it. So it's not completely a water based moisturizer, which is better for oily skin. But since today we're working with a normal skin, can we see how pretty her face is already looking? So hydrated, extremely happy. Moisturize your lips so they are ready to be juicy for your matte lipstick. Any lip balm works fine, trust me. Under eyes, always use a really rich moisturizing cream product under your eyes, and you just gently apply that under your eyes. This is so amazing. What this does is it helps with the under eyes, especially people who have dry eyes. And even if you don't have dry eyes, this really helps you have all the time in the world to blend out your concealer without it drying and creating some weird patch. Because I know some of you would have watched videos where they say leave the concealer to sit. Sometimes some concealers are just so drying that they dry up and then they create a really weird patch. So always using a great moisturizer. So now that we're done moisturizing, the next step is now to prepare for our base, which is priming. So based off of the fact that we're working on her as a normal to oily skin, this is the prep I'll do in the T-zone area only for her oily skin. I'm going to start with this oil control liquid, and I'd like to use my fingers to get the product on the skin, and I'll be putting this only in the T-zone area where she oils up. Just tap, 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 light taps. Next, I go in with the Danesamyric Yummy Skin Blurring Balm, and then I use a mattifying primer. I'm going to recommend a long list of mattifying primers, but this Danesamyric stuff, y'all need to get it, because it controls oil generally and helps really with my process make your makeup last all day. So today I'm going to use the Danesamyric's mattifying primer serum as well. On our more mattifying makeup day, I'll use a different primer. I want the Milk Makeup Primer. And you see, I am focusing everything that mattifies only in the T-zone areas. So if you have a similar skin type, like generally normal skin, or you want your makeup to last all day, you could do this everywhere. If you're gonna have a hot summer day or a generally hot day, you could do this everywhere, both in the oily and the normal regions. And then if you have oily skin, you can also do this everywhere. We're going to go through in the matte tutorial we will be treating in our next demo. So now I'm using the Milk Hydrating Primer, and the trick with that primer is to make sure that your moisturizer has properly sat on your face before you apply it. So it just goes on really slick and easy, because if you apply it immediately after you apply your moisturizer, you have a white cast, and that doesn't make the primer work the way it is supposed to. It can make your foundation slide off and just act funny. So that is a pro tip for using the Milk Hydrating Primer. It's a great primer, but you pretty much have to know how to use it. All right, now we're gonna go into foundation because my base is ready for that. I usually apply my foundation on a palette, and I use a flat top brush from Real Techniques. It's like a flat top foundation brush. I prefer using a brush than using a beauty blender because I find that brushes allow me apply my products way better than foundation does. So my model today, Katrina, has a warm toned, and then she has some pink sparks. Very tricky. I've done Katrina's makeup a lot of times, and I would not lie to you and say I don't miss it sometimes, but we've gotten better over the years. So for foundation today, I'm going to be using the Shiseido and NARS foundation in Cadiz and the Shiseido in Centering 360. Foundation always starts off crazy, trust me. You have to learn how to work your consistencies. When you're mixing foundations, a really good product to use in your mixture is the SOOO Cosmetic mixing medium. So what you pretty much do is you need a drop or two in your palettes mixed in with your foundation. What this does is it breaks down the different components of multiple foundations, and it makes it like come together as one foundation on the person's face. If you have a foundation that is oil, water based, all those things don't matter because of the mixing potion has broken down all the components and made it pretty much one base and holds it all together, if that makes any sense, and avoids a lot of breaking and cracking that you might experience from using different products. So sometimes it's not like you didn't use a good primer or you didn't use a good foundation or you're not using good products. It's that the combination of your products or the mixing of your products are just off. So what the mixing potion does is it breaks all that up and allows you to experience just one foundation. It creates one consistency for you that works with your primer and base and just holds your makeup together. It also elongates the wear of your makeup. So check that product out for real. So right now we're gonna go into our concealer. So I'm going to put my concealer only on the highest points, not too much. You don't need a lot of product. And like I said, if you prime your under eye well, your concealer is going to move pretty easy. Same with the rest of your face. So after you apply, just blend it all out with a booty blender. For my foundation, I'm sure you all noticed that after I used my brush, I went in with my beauty blender. That's what I usually prefer because the beauty blender wouldn't absorb as much product as I use less product when I use a brush than when I use a beauty blender, in my opinion. So when you are snatching the face, you see this part of where her brow ends and where the end of her eye is. You should be connecting them with like a line. You shouldn't be blending outward or downward. What that does is you are beginning to lift the face. That is like you're beginning to snatch her face. So before I blend out the under eye, I like to make sure that there are no lines whatsoever after I blend in the concealer, and then I go in with a powder to begin to set. So today I'm using my Charlotte Tilbury Flawless powder in shade 1 to set first, and then the next thing I will use is a loose powder and a puff. So in using the puff, I dip right here, and then I always smooth it out at the back of my hand to make sure I have an even distribution. So you shouldn't go in straight like this. It's too messy, and you apply different quantities of powder under the eye and it can create a tackiness. Always make sure you smooth it out at the back of your hand and have an even base before you go in and apply. So I kind of like to sculpt the face. Bring my powder all the way to the sides of your nose and then set all the other areas where I use concealer. Now I'm using my face powder to set the rest of her face, like all the areas that have foundation on it. Pretty much everywhere I did not have concealer. And I like to use a really thick buffing brush, like powder brush, so that it really pushes the powder in and properly sets the face. I'm not banging, please. Don't pound people's head. Just lightly tap. And because you're using the right tool, it'll do the work. So the next thing I'm gonna do now is use my Fenty Pro Filter Soft Matte Powder. That's what I like to use for contour because it's like a powder foundation. So it really sets, it self-sets, and then it gives me the contoured effect I like to see. And I'm going to apply it right where her ear starts, right here. I know her ear is covered, but from the top of the ear, just right there on the cheekbones. Don't apply your contour downward, apply it upward, and then buff from the top into the cheek, like underneath the eyes, just a little bit. So when you turn around, you don't have some white casts hanging up here. You need to push your contour in there as well, or everything comes out looking as seamless as possible. So when you say snatch, it's not like highlights is staying in one place, contour is staying in another corner. So top of the ear, you see, like right on top of the ear to a little in the center. Now I feel like I gotta take this off to make sure I make my points. To show you guys again, top of the ear, right here, your walk zone. And you see that my contour doesn't even get past that. Right on top of the ear. And then you blend inwards towards under your eye. So it blends with your concealer. That's the other reason why I like this powder, because it's like a powder foundation. It gives you a bit of blendability time before it sets. So this is shade 385 for my contour. She doesn't have a really big forehead, so there's really nothing for me to contour on her forehead. But if you have a bigger forehead, please, you can hide it a little bit. Now I'm gonna go in with the nose, and just to tone down the Fenty powder a little bit, I'm going to mix it with my Charlotte Tilbury powder in shade 3, just to make it a little bit softer. And I'm going to use a buffing brush, a smaller buffing brush. I like to start at the beginning of her nose that joins her eyebrows and create a halo there with the powder, and then I apply my powder right at the tip of the nose and kind of shape it like a V, and do the same thing on the other side. Create the shadow here first. Make sure you blend it out right into the eyebrows, not on top of the eyebrows, right into the eyebrows. And it can go into her crease as well, because your bronzer or your contour powder being there helps bring everything together. So the idea of having a snatch look is making sure everything blends in together. Just looks like, wow, where did her contour start? Where did her highlight start? Where did this start? How did this start? You know, everything just looks so well blended. It looks like this is literally how you woke up flawless. So for the bridge of the nose, I don't go in with any more product. I just use whatever I have left and I blend it out in between the sides. Why? Because you don't want any like unnecessary harsh lines or darkness. Just continue to blend. I promise you there's still product on that brush, okay? There is still product on that brush. You don't need the harsh lines. When the lines are harsh, it is not snatch. All right, now we're going to go in with my blush, and I'm using a brush from Sorry My Love. Can imagine the pain from Patrick Ta today, and I'm just gonna blend it right on top of my contour, and I'm also gonna take it under her eyes. It is all blended. Major emphasis in this class on all blended, right where the concealer is. Don't worry about seeing your blush in your eyeshadow area or under your eye. We're gonna fix all that. You just need it to be where it's supposed to be, in place. See how I'm using the edge of the brush? I'm not necessarily using the brush full on. If you want to use the brush full on, if you're self-applying on yourself, you smile and you start from the apples of your cheek outward. But because of I'm applying on a client, you want to do this because it's mostly how the face is when people meet you. You know, you're not always smiling when people see you. Your face is usually at rest. So when you're applying, it's better to apply with your face at rest. That's why you should use like techniques that allow you hit the places the products are supposed to hit when the face is at rest, okay? So now if I have her smile, you see that I have blush getting there. I didn't need to get her face in the smiling mode to start doing, oh, let's do blush. It's not necessary. Just use the right techniques. Now we're going to go into our unreleased products. I call this like a highlight before the highlight. It's called our Extra Dimension Highlighters. We have them in the loose form, but we created 2 new shades. And I've been using this for about 3 years now. You wouldn't believe it when I say I'm always product testing and doing the most. So I'm mixing both shades actually because I want a more bronzed look for my model today. So I'm using the darker shade on top of the contour and then the lighter shade right on top of my blush area, just to create a bit of a shimmer, you know, a bit of a sheen to the sides of the face to make everything look more natural. So the darker shade right here and then the lighter shade right on top of my blush right here, and then the lighter one only on all the areas of the face. So now we go straight into the brows, like I call it pre-brows. So I like to pre-draw my brows by prepping it and outlining it and concealing it. Then I do my eyeshadow before I finish up my brows with my signature brow technique. Why do I do this? Why don't I just do the brows start to finish and then go into my eyeshadow? I do this because most of the time I hardly ever know what eyeshadow I'm gonna do. Not as much as it sounds funny. Most of my clients don't also know what they want. They always leave the job for me to figure everything out. And then I don't want a situation where I do an eyeshadow that is too dark and then, or too bright, and then the eyebrows are too heavy already. How am I gonna clean up that mess? Or sometimes you finish doing your eyeshadow and you just see that the brow being as light as possible looks more beautiful than it being completely filled out and dark, if that makes any sense. That's why I use the method where I pre-draw and clean up, do my eyeshadow, and then come back and look at it and say, oh, do I need to darken the brows or give it a bit more structure, or do I just like it as fluffy and light as it is? So the first thing I always do with my brows is I prime, and I always use the Becca primer, and then I brush it out to kind of see where the brows are supposed to sit. If you have highlighted properly, contoured properly, it's pretty much easy to see how to map out your brows, no matter how full or tiny a person's brow hairs are. Like Katrina here has full brows, and I don't trim her brows because she doesn't trim them, or she didn't come here with them trimmed. So whatever you give me is pretty much what I draw. And I have a lot of people that say, oh, why don't you trim brows? It's hard to draw brows when they are not trimmed. It's really not that hard. Just look at the person's structure, and if you've placed your contour and your highlights properly, all you need to do is just follow that. So I start with the bottom outline by simply drawing a line this way and then all the way to the arc, and I kind of stop. That's the body of the brow. That's the center of your eyebrows. I do the same thing for the top. The dark part of her eye is, what's that called? Is that the iris, or what is it called? Where this part is, the end of your, that's where the arch should be. So like right here. So if you see naturally, she doesn't have a very heavy arc. She has a more softer arc. So it really also depends on what results you want to try and achieve. I have a flat arch, but I really want a very obvious eyebrow arch when you are drawing my eyebrows. So those are the things that you listen out for, or you decide that you want on yourself personally when you want to draw your eyebrows. So now that my top and my bottom outline kind of match, I can draw out my tail. So this is where I decide, oh, do I want to make it straight? Do I want to give it more of an arch and stuff like that? But I'll give her a soft, very soft arch. And you see that even with her hair not being trimmed or whatever, I'm able to still achieve my eyebrows, ignoring all the extra hair all over the place. So your tail should fall to the direction where this line is going, if that makes sense. They should cross like a good X, or when they cross, they form a very beautiful V, but I'm not trying to get that done right now. So just use your imaginary eyes to see the V, and then you create a very soft tail right there. So that's what our brows are looking like today. Very soft, easy, and then you feel lightly. All right, so I'm going to draw against the brow like so, to fill in the places where her skin still pops through very lightly with my pencil. The idea of makeup is less is more, so it's better to use lighter strokes than to go in heavy-handed and have like a big fat mistake. Okay, so I still see a bit of a gap right here, so I'm just gonna fill here once more and then I'm done. Very light outline of her brows, nothing too dramatic. So I'm gonna do the same thing here. Another thing about Katrina's brows I noticed is they are not sisters or friends. They just do whatever. But that doesn't matter as well. Just make sure you draw it right, if that makes sense. Then I shade across or against the hairs to fill out And we're done with that. I'll do a paper demonstration of eyebrows to further explain the science behind eyebrows. So like I said, just what you draw, forget about the hair that you can see. Just draw your concealer line to clean up over the hair. It's okay. So you always need a good eyeshadow primer to, just like your face, block out oils or whatever you have going on your eyelid, and it also elongates the wear of your eye makeup. So just dab a little bit of it over your eyelid, and you see how it kind of dries matte, kind of blocking out the oils or everything happening underneath your eyes. Next thing I like to use is a paint from About Face. It's like a neutral brown paint. It literally works perfectly on all skin tones. I like to use it where I applied like my nose contour into her eyebrows, and also at the tail end of the eyes, just to emphasize. So you need 3 brushes essentially. So these are the 2 major brushes. Honestly, you need one big blending brush or wide blending brush to help you diffuse colors from your crease outward. Then you need one pointed blending brush that helps you apply products like all over. That's this one, all over the eyelid and in your crease and your eyelid and your outer V area. Then you can get a flat top brush like this for the eyelid to apply your matte or your shimmer shadows. So I'm going to be using this eyeshadow palette today. I'm going to use this color on the lid to create like a soft, easy look. Like just, oh, you have bronzed eye, a bronzed eye look, if that makes sense. And then I'm going to buff it out with the buffing brush and this lighter shade. I'm doing this for the girls that are always asking for a simple, not so complex eye look. So just keep going, buffing it into the V area and upwards into your concealer. Don't bother about the concealer. The brightness is still going to pop even if you buff it upwards. You're just trying to make sure that the eyeshadow doesn't look like it's stuck in one place and it's properly blended everywhere. Then for effect, you can darken the outer V with a darker shade just to add a bit more depth right there. So now I'm going to line a waterline with a brown liner. Since we're going soft with this look, this is a brown liner from Morphe in the shade Vibes. Any brown liner you have will do the trick, trust me. I'm going to use this palette to set that under eye shadow. Applicator and chocolate brown wing right there. You see how easy things just look put together when you use like the right techniques. It looks like, oh, that was supposed to be there. So now we're back to the brows. Just to fill it out a little bit, I'm going to go with my MAC brow gel and my duo eye glue. What this does is it just tints the eyebrows to make it look a lot more natural, and then the glue makes me put the hair where I want it to be. Helps me put the hair right where I want it to be. So you see how I brushed it to look like strokes? The next thing I'm going to do now is then I brush the hair in place like so. So I like to use an applicator, and I just make sure that I blend it out properly and make sure the applicator is so thin on both ends before I go in to apply on my eyebrow and further define it. So the same thing, I just draw my outline again, but this is a really tiny applicator wand, so it comes off as hair-like strokes, like so precise, absolutely gorgeous and beautiful. So I just keep going back and forth. That's the technique. It's a bit tedious, but it makes me have flawless brows. So that's my technique, guys, even on myself. And because the brush is so tiny, like you see how hair-like the strokes are, you don't get to see any thick ass strokes that look unnatural. They look very natural, and because that's the vibe we're about to give. That's the snatch vibe. So for the applicator, you want to keep going back in and making sure the applicator is flat. That's the trick. So you can go in as many times as possible. If not, you won't achieve the hair-like stroke results that you want to achieve, okay? So always make sure you go back in, back and forth, flatten it, and you go back into the brows and create strokes and achieve the brow of your dream, literally. So now I'm going to dust off the excess powder from underneath her eyes. Time to dust off and finish off this look. Look up at me, using my brush that I used to set initially. So I'm going to go in with a concealer that kind of matches her foundation shade. So I usually advise people to have 3 concealers, one that matches your foundation shade, one that is lighter than your foundation shade for your highlight, and then one that is way darker. And then I'm going to clean up, sharpen up this eyeshadow with a concealer shade that matches her foundation. Then when I'm done in blending it out, remember when I told you that forget about the blush being under the eye and all that cute stuff. This is how we fix it. We just use a little bit of the concealer that kind of matches your foundation shade, not anything that is brighter. And then I use this kind of flat top brush. I'll show you guys. It's from GLAM Cosmetics. When we're done, I'm sure a lot of other brands have it too, to kind of buff it into the blush and the contour area and also into the concealer. And then I use the Charlotte Tilbury brightening powder to set that and like blend it all together, even underneath the eyes as well. Yes, ma'am. I always tell them, don't bang people's faces, please. Just be so light-handed. Like I have clients telling me that, oh, I feel so sleepy when I work. To set the face now, I'm going to use the Hydra mist. So everything, powder, kind of melts in to her face. And then I'm going to let that dry. And while that is drying, I'm going to go straight into lining her lips. So I lined with my Morphe liner in Bites Me. And now I'm using my SOOO Cosmetics matte lipstick in ZARA. Just feel like it's the perfect nude on every skin tone. So I line my lash band, and then I use the duo glue as well. And when I do that, I will coat with mascara so that the lashes blend seamlessly with her natural eyelashes. Alright, and I use it here to just gently apply in the center, yeah, and then fix right here, and fix right here. So I'm gonna line the eyes right here. Then use my mascara to coat her natural lashes so it blends easily with her false lashes. Why? Because sometimes, I'm sure you notice when you put your lashes on, you'll be seeing some powder or eyeshadow on the bottom part of your mascara. You should have blended it out properly with a mascara before you lay down your lashes. So place in the center first, then you join at the ends. And sometimes you need to hold in place for a little bit to make sure that it truly stays on. finish our lips off with our lip gloss from SOOO Cosmetics. All the lips are SOOO Cosmetics, guys. All the products are really just really cool and great. It's so pretty. If you don't have you one, grab you one or some or all. And then when I'm done with my gloss, I like to reapply my lip liner just to emphasize the pout. So I'm using the, the crazy thing about this trick is it is one of my students that taught me this, and ever since I saw her do it, I don't even think she knew she used to do it, and I started doing it. Like usually I just finish putting my gloss and I'll walk away. But ever since I started coming back to do this liner stuff, game changer. It just makes it look like, oh gosh, her lips look good. So now we're gonna apply our highlighter, and I like to use a pointed, nice brush. And I put it right at the highest points of your face. Today I'm using the SOOO Cosmetics highlighter in Kai and JARA, which is like a gold tone and a pink tone to create like two-dimensional shifts. And the last but not the least step, so you want to make sure you look around the face, powder whatever needs to be powdered before the final setting spray. Or the final look. Just go around your work and make sure you have everything pretty much covered. Give my powder brush, the under eye setting one too, that everything is properly blended and sitting where it's supposed to be sitting. So we're gonna use our Seal It spray, and you just evenly distribute it around the face. Make sure you're generous. And it's the end, Stephanie. Literally drive home and be like, why do I not have mascara on? This is me off a lot. It's essential, guys.